Well, good morning. Mr. Bill Berry here, and I am on my way to a morning writing session with one of my friends and accountability partners. In a nutshell, we have a once a week meeting, starts at 9 a.m., and we typically write for about 90 minutes before she has to go and do other work stuff. But it's a beautiful thing to have an accountability partner, and when I'm really deep in a project like I am right now, I typically try to have 2 or even 3 accountability partners so that I meet up on one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Friday, and it helps to keep it on the schedule. Because I don't know about you, but for me, if I don't have something locked in on the schedule that day, it's easy for other things to encroach and, oh yeah, I can be there for that. And then all of a sudden, the other project, the passion project, gets pushed aside. But all that said, I've got 12 minutes here that I can chat with you. So let's talk about, I want to share with you my own process in writing so that if you're wanting to be an author, or if you're wanting to take your writing to the next level, you have a template. I know some other authors showed me what they were doing, and I took little parts and pieces of that for my own process. So I want to give you my process so that you can take little parts and pieces and apply them to your process. First off, I wrote my first story in 1994 or 1995 with no intention of doing anything with it. Just if something interesting happened, I wrote the story and I saved it. A couple months later, something else interesting happened. I wrote that down, and that progression happened for the next 20 plus years. And I always had this kind of thought in the back of my head of maybe someday I'll write a book, but I didn't think about it seriously until 2021. Maybe 2022, somewhere in there. And that started with, I thought, oh, and so many writers think this, like, oh, I got to find a publisher. So I started soliciting publishers, and I didn't have a manuscript, I didn't have a rough draft. I just solicited publishers and said, hey, I've got this idea. And the 2 publishers who gave me the most interest both said, we want your story as an entertainer. That's interesting. Oh, you won the world championships, you're a sword swallower, you have a Guinness World Record, you've been all over the world. That's a story, and plus that's your following. Those are the people who know you, so that's what we want. But I knew, that as a writer, even though I'd been writing for 2 decades at that point, I knew I wasn't ready to tell that story, and it was just too much. It was so overwhelming to try to tell that story, and I knew it would be such a big story that I said, you know what, I need an interim project. And all along, I'd had these short stories that I really loved. And I thought, well, short stories work with my flow. You get in, you bust it out, you get out. It's bam, bam, bam. You have results quickly, you throw it up on Facebook or something, and you get feedback. So that worked really well for me. And I decided, hey, let me go through all of my notes and see what I have. And I ended up going through my years and years of notes. I had 563 notes and pieces. And those were anywhere from a page to one of those notes was over 300,000 words, to give you an idea of the body of work that we were working with. It took me, I recall it being 6 weeks to organize those 563 notes and actually see what I had. It took weeks to go through it. But I did, and I noticed that I had about 100 short stories that seemed worth working on. And I thought, well, this is great. Let me just pick the 100 short stories and let me just get all those done. It'll grow me as a writer. And it did. From 2022 to 2023, I wrote those 100 stories. I actually ended up getting up to like 97. I never quite wrote the full 100. And ultimately, those stories, a theme emerged, stories that move. That became book 1. I got my editor, Amy. We worked together. An editor relationship is so important, but you got to get your manuscript together. I'm jumping around a little bit. That's a whole video in and of itself. But point being, I got my editor, got those stories together, and in August 8th of 2023, Stories That Move was published, which, fantastic. What an accomplishment. Now I know it's not theory anymore. Now I know I can publish a book. I've done it. I can do it. So that was great. And then, well, now I've published a book. So I started in 2023 and 2024. I started the actual memoir of my journey as an entertainer and as a juggler. And that took me essentially the rest of the year after 2023 Stories That Move was published, all of 2024, I worked on that. And by the time it was done, it was 237,000 words. Now, obviously, once it gets edited, it'll get cut down a little bit. But the main draft that covered from 1997 to basically 2018, all of the notes I had and everything that was significant, 237,000 words. Voluminous. And I turned that into my editor, knowing full well it was trying to eat an elephant in one bite. And she looked at it, she went through and edited some stuff, and then she said, I just got to tell you, this isn't 1 or even 2 books, this is 4 or 5 books. She says, the scope on this is so wide. And she was very complimentary about it. She said, you have a lot of interest. You've had a lot of really interesting, weird things happen. So we got to split this up in a way that makes sense. And I thought, you know what, she's right. So I went back to the drawing board, and as I was going through it, I realized, wait a second. I could completely take all of the fire-related things out of here and create a handbook that guides people towards fire handling, tells my own story, which the story itself teaches you so much about the journey of becoming a fire handler. So I just extracted those chapters, and by and large, it didn't affect the main memoir at all to lose those. And I published Embracing the Flame, and in the process dropped the main manuscript by something like 20,000 words. So Embracing the Flame came out, and it was just extracted from that main manuscript. That got published. That's doing well. I've already done a couple of workshops. I've got a student who wants to train in the method and then become an instructor herself. I just did a session at the house yesterday. It was fantastic. I've got people coming to me because they want to learn this skill. It's not just about learning how to handle fire. It's about learning a toolbox for overcoming fear and stepping into the things that are uncomfortable. And that's working beautifully. I can tell. I need to actually do a whole video on why I thought that was so important. There's a story about it, and it's so impactful and important, but that's also another video, so we'll get there. But all that said, now I had done that entire rough draft of the memoir. Now I've split that giant memoir into 2, so it's a volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 1 is what I did my second draft of it. So I did the original, did a whole second draft, and now I'm almost halfway of a full read through where I'm fixing and correcting any little things, clarifying anything. And hopefully within the next week or 2, I will have finished that full read through. Then that goes back to the editor, and if she says it's a go, we will be ready to design a cover and move towards publishing. So that's super exciting, because this has been years in the making. I mean, not just the accumulation of the content, which took decades, but to get it to here has taken years. And this will probably be the most important book I ever write, as far as telling my own story and the journey. And beyond that, creating an inspirational roadmap for people who want to follow their dreams and they want to bring their artistic vision to life. If you've been on here for any amount of time, you've heard me say artrepreneur instead of entrepreneur. Artrepreneur. Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue always, but the idea that we can take the thing that we love and we can successfully find a market for it, monetize it, and if we really want, I believe that most things can be crafted into a living. I don't think that's just fantasy. I think so many people, it's been beat into us that, oh, if you're going to enjoy it or if it's something you love, you can't make a living at it. No, it might take some doing. It might take some work. In fact, remind me to make a video about Fossil Roadshow, because I can tell you all about one of these things. Yeah, I'm going to interview Noah and show you how we did exactly this. So it's not just I did it with juggling. I'll show you multiple examples of how we've done this and used this model and how you can use it too. So we'll get there. But all that said, she will get the second read through, or the final read through. Hopefully we'll go to press, and then I will start right into the second half of the memoir, which is more about actually becoming entertainers. We met our college agent, we started doing colleges. After we did the colleges, we started doing the military tours and the cruise ships and the bigger corporate events, and boom, next thing you know, we were touring the world quite literally, going everywhere. There was 1 year where we were in 32 countries and 24 states in 1 year. And I think that's the same year we were on the road 283 days. I was sleeping somewhere other than my own bed 283 days that year. And that was amazing. It was a grind, but holy moly, it was amazing to do all that and get to experience it. And that's what these upcoming books are all about. So let's turn it around because I'm almost to my destination. If you're working on your book, if you're working on your manuscript, one of the keys is you have to get to where you have your rough draft. If you can do accountability with other people to get there, fantastic. If there's writing groups, if there's books, I have numerous books that I recommend, and I'll make a thing about that soon too, showing you the books that I think are super helpful and the ones that really impacted me in my own writing journey. But it is a long journey to be an author. I'm not even going to consider myself truly an author until I've got 5 books published, which maybe that sounds crazy, but I like to set goals that push me, and my core body of work is going to be 5 books, and most of those are already outlined. Organization is so important. Vellum. I use Vellum. If you're on a Mac, I highly recommend Vellum. Unless you have a lot of pictures in your book, then you might have to do something else, but you can use Word. Whatever works for you, use that. Whatever gets you sitting there doing the work, that's the thing to use. But anyways, there's a little bit on the process and what it's taken to move from not writing, not author, to the process over years and years and years, all the way through having a book published, 2 books published, and a 3rd one right around the corner. Keep dreaming, keep going, never give up. Set goals that are just huge, and then set goals that are even bigger, because there's nothing more frustrating than setting a goal you think you'll never get to, and then finally you get there. So set big goals, aim for them, and then set even bigger ones. Like, just go, go, go. It takes time, it takes work, but you can get there. I got there, you can get there. We can do this, and we'll talk to you soon.